Hello quilting friends, and happy Feature Friday everyone. It's nice to have y'all back with me today. We are going to pick up where we left off last week on our Starry Night quilt that we were working on, and it is time to get nesting. So let's turn around and look at the quilt again and see what we've got to work with. All right, everybody, so if you remember, we had our pretty starry pattern with our swirls, and we had finished out our first row, and we were looking at our pretty design here that had stitched out, and it is now time to nest our next row. This is going to be interesting to see kind of what happens, because you can see here that the bottom of the design is kind of at this level, but we've got a good swoop in here. So we'll have to see how this nests out and if we'll have to do any work to it. So when we finish a row and have it all stitched out, it obviously stops at our little red square at the end of our design. When we're all stitched out and ready to go, we have our nesting feature. It is in our home. No need to go to a different location, and our nesting feature is our rows of little hearts down here. So to nest, we can highlight that, and we get our directions across the bottom of our display with kind of our options across the side here. And our first direction says select and mark our nesting point. And usually I like to be kind of in the middle of my whole quilt. So I'm kind of in the middle here. And I like to choose a point kind of towards the bottom of my design. So I'm going to line my needle up with some of the stitching here on the bottom of this swirly swoop. And when I do that, I'm going to drop my needle down into my fabric. So that's me marking my nesting point. Now, if you're uncomfortable with dropping your needle into your fabric to mark your nesting point, you can always use a fabric marking pencil or pen or chalk pencil. Just make sure you're comfortable with it coming off of your fabric when you're done quilting your quilt. So I've got my needle in my fabric. That is me marking my nesting point. And because I've done that, I can come over here and hit my check mark to say I've done that direction. My next direction comes up across the bottom of my display, and it says roll my quilt. So to do that, I'm just going to come over to the edge of my frame and unlock my locks, and I am going to roll my quilt. I'm going to take it nice and easy and go slow because I do have my needle in my fabric. I don't want to put any extra stress there. And I'm just going to roll my quilt enough so that I know I can stitch out another row. I don't want to go too far because remember, we've got this extra swoop in here that we're going to have to quilt up a little bit higher than normal. So I'm going to probably stop about here. Oop, I let it go, y'all. Doing this kind of one-handed is a little bit tricky. So I'm going to stop about here and lock myself back into place. And I have now rolled my quilt, so I'm going to hit my check mark. My next direction says move the machine to your nesting point. Now for me, I'm already at my nesting point because I left my needle in my fabric. But if you marked with a marking pencil or pen, you're going to just move your machine so that your needle hovers over this point. Once you're there, you can go ahead and hit the green check mark. Now it says move the machine to place the nested rows. And as you can see, we've got 2 rows here on our display. This grayed out looking row up here is what we've already stitched out, or what's up here on my fabric. But this row down here in black is what we want to stitch next. And for us, you can see that I've got quite a gap between my 2 rows. So we have a little work to do. We're going to need to move our rows a little bit closer together. Before I try to do anything though, I'm going to remove my needle from my fabric by pulling my needle back up. That way I'm not going to accidentally tear anything. So to move my machine to place my nested rows, I'm actually going to use my little arrows here. I'm going to highlight this feature, and now I can use my machine to change the distance between the two rows. If I pull my machine towards me, it's actually increasing the space between the two rows that you see on the screen. But if I push my machine away from me, it's shortening the distance between the two rows on the display, and that's what I want to do. I want to nest these a little bit closer. And I'm going to be a little bit fiddly here. I want to try and match the distance between the already stitched out row and kind of the designs, and make sure they kind of look very similar as far as the space kind of between the swirls and kind of what it looks like between the first row already stitched and what I'm about to place. I kind of want to make them look very similar with the distance between everything. That tends to make it look pretty good. I'm just going to nudge this one more time, just a hair. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my check mark here. And now it says nesting complete really quick across the bottom of your screen. And the row that we see here is our new row to stitch out, and it should nest perfectly on our quilt. And if you want to double check things, you can always use your crosshairs that are on your screen. I can shift over to the top of this little swirly here and then look down here on my quilt, and the top of that swirly will be right here. So the side of the swirl is going to kind of come in here next to this little star. So I think we did a great job nesting. Let's go ahead and stitch this out. We're still in our home. We've got our needle engaged. So all we have to do is hit our green button there. Make sure just again that needle's not in our fabric, and hit our check mark. We'll think for a second, and then our robotic system is going to move our machine to the start of our design, and we can get going. I'm going to grab my little thread tail here because it is going to make me do a single stitch. I've got my directions here so I can do that. And hit my check mark. This is pull up my bobbin thread. So I'm just going to push my machine out of the way a little bit. Pull up my bobbin tail and make sure I have both my top and my bobbin thread. Hit my check mark. It's going to recenter back into place so that I can cycle my needle to lock my stitches. Hit the check mark, and we are ready to go. I'm going to turn the stitching on here on my handlebars and hit the check mark on my display, and we will start stitching out our nested row of designs. I'm going to let this stitch and get our second row stitched out. I know this is really loud, so I don't want y'all to have to listen to that, but I'll come back when it's all stitched out so you can see our next row. Okay, everybody, so we've got row 2 all stitched out, and I think we did a pretty good job of getting that nested. So nesting between one row and the next row would be kind of right here. So we've got a really good distance between that. I think it looks pretty seamless if you look kind of down the whole quilt. It doesn't look like there's any funny gaps or anything in it. So I am pretty happy with this, and I'm going to keep grooving down this quilt to get it fit. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I appreciate you being here. I know this one was a little bit different. Normally my patterns just kind of nest on their own and look great, but this time we had to do a little work to move it into place. Sometimes that's going to happen, and now you know how to do that. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.